Good morning, sweet friends, and welcome back to the Updike Family Homestead. Today, it's all about green beans and how to get them processed, canned, and ready on your shelf. So stay tuned and we'll get started. Welcome back. Okay, so let's talk about this for just a second. Now, we grow two varieties of green beans. One variety are the bush beans, which I love. The other variety are pole beans. Now, the biggest difference between the two would be the bush beans, once they bloom, they're done. Like, they're done producing. So typically, I will can those bush beans and then I will freeze and can and keep for fresh the pole beans. Why? Because the pole beans will continue to produce all throughout your season. You pick them and they'll keep growing. So I like to kind of save those for frozen beans, sauteed green beans, stir-fried green beans, fried green beans, you name it, we use those pole beans. So these are the pole beans. But I am today specifically focusing on canning the pole beans for you guys, because I've had so many people reach out and ask to do a tutorial on the green beans. Now, you can can your green beans in either a pint-sized jar or a quart-sized jar. Now, typically it's just James and me at home anymore. However, I do feed the kids. All of the kids come back home from mama's cooking, but I also will feed, neighbors and friends that are maybe just needing a meal, anything like that. So I do a mixture of both quart and pint size mason jars for that specifically. All right, so tools that you're going to need other than your mason jars. Now, let me be very clear. I am not a rebel canner, which means that I will not water bath my green beans. When I am processing them to can, to keep for 2, 3, 4, 5, on up to 10 years, I'm gonna be using that pressure canner. I have a 23 quart pressure canner. I actually have two of them. I'm only using the one today. And so that pressure canner just ensures the food, health, and safety guidelines for your family. I know that I just don't want to take that chance. I don't want to risk it. So I'm going to use that pressure canner. You want to process your green beans. If you are doing pints only, you're going to do 10 pounds of pressure for 20 minutes. And if you are doing quarts, then you're going to do 10 pounds of pressure for 25 minutes. Now, for me, I live above that 1,000 feet in elevation. It is extremely important that you know your zip code, your area's elevation. So just be mindful of that. Go ahead and Google it. Just find out whatever your elevation is, because your elevation does change how many pounds of pressure you need and how long to process your green beans. So that is for 1,000 feet up to 1,800 feet, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that that's what it is. So the pressure canner, obviously your mason jars. You're gonna need lids and rings. You're gonna need some type of salt. I'm gonna be using the canning salt from Morton. You need a funnel. Now, I love this particular funnel. I do have it linked in our Amazon storefront, but this one I love simply because if you look here, it has your measurements on there. So when you're looking at a mason jar, this little ring all the way down at the bottom, that is 1 inch of headspace. When you move up, that's 3/4, and then of course your half, and then your 1/4 inch. Typically, whenever you're canning vegetables, you're gonna want that 1 inch of headspace. Truly, I think anything that you do in the pressure canner, so whether that's vegetable broth, beef broth, chicken broth, soups, stews, any kind of meat, potatoes, carrots, cabbage, all of those things that you can in the pressure canner, you're gonna want that 1 inch of headspace. Whenever you're doing something in your water bath canner, you're gonna be looking at that 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch of headspace. So again, it's just gonna kind of fluctuate with whatever it is that you are processing and canning. Now, let's say that you're not like us, right? Like you don't have this big old giant garden like we have, but instead you go to the farmer's market, or you go to your local Amish community or your Mennonite community or another local farmer, and you just want to be able to can. You can do that. Go for it. My goal is just to like get people out there and learn how to preserve food that is so much healthier for them than anything you're gonna buy in a grocery store or a big box store, okay? All right, so the funnel. You need some type of a bubble popper. Now this is an actual bubble popper, but if you don't have this tool, it's okay. You can use a butter knife, you could use the end of a wooden spoon, whatever it is that you're able to stick inside of your mason jar to pop all of the bubbles. And this just ensures the safety of making sure that your, whatever it is that you're processing, has a secure seal. If you don't pop those bubbles, then that gas has to go somewhere, and it's gonna end up releasing that lid. So make sure you pop those bubbles. You need a jar lifter. This is what it looks like. No, you cannot use regular tongs for this. You definitely need the jar lifter itself. It has this nice little rubber piece on both sides, and it's kind of curved so that it fits securely around the head of the mason jar so that you're able to lift your jars in and out of the canner. The other thing that you're gonna need is either a paper towel or a rag. We don't buy paper towels, so I have a rag here, and some white distilled vinegar. Now, I love this little tool. I picked this up at the Dollar Tree years ago, specifically for my canning, but it's actually a nail polish remover like dispenser. But you press this down, the white distilled vinegar goes onto your rag. This is so that we can wipe the lid or the rim of the mason jars clean after we have put our vegetables in there and before we put our lids on there. I think that is it. The only other stuff that you're gonna need is a pot of boiling water. Now, I raw pack everything. That's just me, that's my preference. I've been canning for about 20 years now, and I just prefer the taste, the texture, and everything from a raw pack method. Now I'm talking about vegetables. I'm not talking about your jams and jellies and preserves, just the vegetables. And even my venison stew, my beef stew, my chicken, all of those things, I do raw pack. I just like the texture when you open it back up again. So, but even still, if I'm using the raw pack method, these are cold, right? Like they're just, we've washed these, we've rinsed them, washed them, drained them, they're ready to go. I do, however, have a pot of boiling water, and then my jars that I'm gonna be using are in that pressure canner right there. So my jars are hot, my boiling water is hot. If either one of those was different, you can risk your jars getting cracking or busting. I've only ever had it happen once a season, every year without fail. It's once a season, and it's always a jar of pickles. I don't know what it is, and I've been doing this for a long time, but for some reason, just my jars of pickles, one every year bust. But I've never had one break or bust in the pressure canner. All right, so I have my ladle so that I can get that boiling water out. I'm gonna go grab a couple of mason jars. Now remember, I said that I like to use a mixture of both quart size and pint size, so that's what I'm gonna go grab. I'm gonna grab a couple of each so that we can go through the steps. Now, I have already started this process, so I actually have 2 pints and 2 quarts that are done and ready. They're back in that canner. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Now, I do have 1 pint here, and then I have 1 quart here. You can see the size difference there. We're gonna go ahead and take your green beans and get them in there. And I also like to use this tool just to kind of smush everything down all the way. Like, you want it really tightly packed. And be careful because those jars are super hot, so you don't want to burn yourself. Just throwing a couple more in that one. Okay, that one looks good. We can go ahead and do this quart size one now. Now, I will also say that my hands are all clean, they're washed, so no stress there, no worries there at all. Now, one thing I will share with you is you want to make sure that any produce that you buy, so no matter if you're getting it from a grocery store or a farmer's market, or if you're growing it yourself, one way to ensure that there are no bugs in your produce is to kind of give your produce like a soak, and mainly water, but then add a couple of splashes of that white distilled vinegar. It will kind of cleanse everything and make sure that there's no out of sight bugs that you might have missed. That's just the reality of it, guys. My husband says, oh, it's just extra protein. I say, no, thank you. All right, so it looks like I've got these two are all done. They look great. So at this point, we're gonna go ahead and add in our salt. Now, if you're doing a pint, then you wanna make sure that you are doing a half a teaspoon of salt. If you're doing a quart, we're gonna do 1 teaspoon of salt. So a half for a pint, 1 whole teaspoon for a quart. That's all done. Put your funnel back on. I'm gonna slide this one out of the way. And I want to bring, there we go. All right, so boiling water. And again, we're filling up to that 1-inch mark of headspace. That one's all done. Let's go ahead and knock out this quart one. There we go. Now, be very, very careful. So you want like either a towel or an oven mitt, something that you can use. But you're gonna now take your bubble popper and we're gonna go around all of the outer edges. And we're gonna go in the middle, just making sure that we release any bubbles that could be trapped within the green beans. All right. Now, after you do that, now we can go ahead, use your rag, get some of that white distilled vinegar on there. We're gonna go around the edges of that rim, place a new lid on top. Now, I will say that that is an area that has kind of changed for me, especially after 2020 happened. We all know what went down then. There was a shortage of canning supplies, and I quickly learned that there are ways that you can extend the use of your lid. So I want to kind of show you really quick. So if you look here, now obviously this one has pasta sauce written on it, but if you look, I've got some dents in it. There's like imperfections around the edges here. This one, not okay to reuse. This one, however, I switched to disposable labels and has no nicks. The rubber on the lid is perfect. There's nothing wrong. There's no rust. There's no nothing. We can reuse this. So we are. All right, when you are putting your rings on, you want to make sure that it's fingertip tight, which means that you're just basically able to take your jar and close it or seal it, seal that ring with your fingertips, okay? You don't want to make it too tight. Let's move on to the next one. Again. Oh, and y'all know what? I just heard thunder. I might get kicked out of here. I have to go back inside. This outdoor kitchen setup has been such a blessing. I can all season long, so in the wintertime it's not a big deal to can inside. That's typically when I'll do soups and stews and stuff like that. But in the summertime, it just gets so hot inside that it just keeps the AC running, and nobody wants to pay that electric bill. So James and I did some research and decided, yep, we're gonna do an outdoor kitchen, and that's what we did, and it has been just a wonderful blessing on the homestead. You know what? I just realized, y'all are gonna laugh at me. That is not a mason jar. That is a, I don't even know what kind of jar that is. So let me go grab another quart. That's my fault. I keep jars for every single purpose and reason possible. All right, so I'm just gonna take this and we're just gonna transfer it. Look at that beautiful bright green color of these green beans. Oh, gorgeous. And look, I wanna show you. Now that one was way full, right? So I can actually add in a little bit more, which is fantastic. So let's do that. Perfect, right? All right. That was a quick and easy fix. No harm, no foul, right? Again, get your white distilled vinegar, wipe that rim down, add your lid, and then your ring, fingertip tight. And now they're ready to go back into the canner. Remember, this jar just came out of that pressure canner where it's still super, super hot. So I want to be very careful not to touch it, okay? I don't want you guys to burn yourself. So again, this is a pint. So we're gonna just fill this up, leaving 1 inch of headspace. Now, I want you to look right closely. You see where you have this 3/4 inch mark right there? That's on that line. The 1 inch is right below, so that is perfect. So now we can go ahead and add in the 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then we'll add in our boiling water. Again, leaving that 1 inch of headspace. You want to make sure too that when you are canning and you're working around all of the flames and the hot liquid, the hot water, the pressure canner, all of these things, you want to make sure that you keep your pets and your babies safe. And please do not do this while you're holding a baby, you know, in your arms. I think it would be okay, like if you had one of those wraparounds that you could put the baby on your back, but you don't want to take the chance of the baby getting burned by steam. I mean, it can really cause a lot of damage. So just be really mindful and really careful of that. So again, going around all of those outer edges, making sure all the bubbles are popped. Perfect. Using your rag, wipe that rim down. Take your lid and place it on top. Get your ring, and we're gonna seal it fingertip tight. And there you go. It's ready to go into that pressure canner. Now you don't have to worry about like the green beans that are already in that canner. There's no need for you to worry about them like getting overdone or anything like that while they're waiting, because this is a process, you know. I mean, it's a process, especially when you're kind of doing it alone. But until you put that lid on there and secure it, it's not really doing anything, so you're okay. It's all right. Alrighty guys, so as you can see, my canner is filled to the brim with green beans. I ended up with 6 pints and 3 quarts in the 23 the 23 quart pressure canner. Now, mine actually has the pressure gauge right here. You do not want to start your timer until this valve goes up, which means it's full. The pressure has, you know, it's got enough pressure in there to put that valve right there up. This is going to go like this, so that's called your jiggler. But then also, because I have the digital one, or not digital, but the scale here, I do not want to start timing mine until mine is between 10 and 15 pounds of pressure. That's when I'm going to set my timer. Now notice that since I have a mixture between quarts and pints, and I think I said this earlier, but I'm going to say it again, you always want to time it for the biggest jar that's in your pressure canner. So I've got quarts in here, which means I need to pressure can these for 25 minutes. All right, so after your timer goes off, you do not want to touch that pressure canner until that valve drops back down. When that valve drops, that means that there is no pressure buildup inside of your pressure canner. And then slowly release the lid and remove it. Remove your jars using your jar lifter. Set them on a towel on your kitchen counter overnight, or at least, overnight. So 24 hours is typically what I go through. And then remove the rings to make sure you have a secure seal. You do not ever, ever, ever want to store any of your canned goods with the rings on them. That is a big mistake that so many people make. I think I've shared videos in the past about what can happen if you don't, but I'll state it again here. If you leave the rings on your jars, then that can create a potential false seal, meaning you think that it's sealed, but it's not really, and it will kind of seal back on itself again, and then you can have that growth of the botulitum, which causes botulism, which can lead to death. So always remove those rings and don't ever stack them on top of one another like so. You want to put some type of a barrier in between, whether it's a piece of cardboard, something. That's what we use, is a piece of cardboard. Make sure you label it, whatever it is. So these are our bush beans and 2023. So I just have what it is and the year that I did it. But there you have it. So green beans, quarts, pints, that are sure to last you upwards of 10 years if you needed to. They never last us that long. I typically will grow enough and put enough away to last us a year. Very rarely do we carry anything over. But that's it, guys. I hope that this helps you, and I hope that you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Bye.